in the NFL. I like to call it the last real football Sunday of the year. Yes, I know there's a Super Bowl in 2 weeks, but that's not a normal football Sunday. There's one game, you're going out, you're going to a bar, you're going to a friend's house, this or that. This is really like the last Sunday of the year, Cerrone, where people get to just kind of sit on the couch, veg out, and casually watch multiple football games. So happy final Sunday football of the season to you.
Man, same to you, man. And I will be doing that. I'll be on the couch and not moving for a good 7 hours. So it's going to be pretty cool. I'm not big on pregame, the TV shows and all the stuff they do in the concerts and all that stuff. So I'll be looking forward to pure football today, and it should be pretty fun. It should be two very good games.
Should be two very good games as we get ready to watch from home. The Patriots, of course, also watching from home. Their season ended a little under a month ago now, but they have been busy since the last time we were on the air, Cerrone, and we'll start here. They have coordinators. The Patriots have actually started to build out their coaching staff behind Mike Vrabel. It's not complete yet. We're still waiting on some bigger positional coach hires. That's, wide receivers coach, offensive line coach, those sorts of things. But when you look at the staff they have so far, some names we kind of expected. Jeremy Springer's back on special teams, as is Tom Quinn. Sort of saw that coming. Josh McDaniels is back, although the staff behind him is shaping up in a very interesting way. We'll get to that in a little bit. And then on defense, Mike Vrabel brings Terrell Williams with him from Tennessee. But I want to start on the offensive side of the ball because this is what drew the most attention. Josh McDaniels is back for his third stint as the offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots. It's a little different than his last two. The previous two times he was promoted to this role, or once promoted, once hired to this role, he was inheriting a team that had Tom Brady. He was inheriting a team that had a top 10 offense, and he just had to keep it going. This time he's tasked with turning things around. How do you feel about the hire of Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator?
Well, like we talked about last week, it's not so much Vrabel's familiar with him because he never really coached together, but I think he understands that he's a veteran coordinator. He kind of knows this stuff. He's won a lot of big games as a coordinator, and kind of like it's a trust factor there, not just for the Crafts, which has been talked about a lot all week, but I think with Vrabel and that coaching staff, on up to Elliott Wolf. Okay, we know he can do his thing offensively. We don't have to worry about that. I don't have to spend too much time over there. He's going to kind of have control of that. So I think the big question now is, what does it look like, without Tom Brady being the quarterback of the offense? And I think one thing that's kind of getting forgotten is not that just Tom Brady's not there anymore. There's no Bill Belichick leading the way. There's no Bill Belichick with the game plan that says, this is what we're trying to do. Give me something to run here. It's a different head coach this time. It's not just 2021. He didn't have Tom Brady. He had Mac Jones, but he still had Bill Belichick behind him, kind of overseeing the whole thing. So that's one key change with Josh McDaniels. But I think time will tell. But I think he's a decent hire. And look, I think he knows offense. Being a head coach is different, but I think as a coordinator, I think he can get the job done well enough for this team to be competitive.
Absolutely had his warts as head coach, certainly. But you're not hiring him to be the head coach, and I think that maybe got lost in translation a little bit this week. It's a different role. It's an interesting point you bring up about him not having Bill Belichick, because we heard during his last stint here, Josh McDaniels kind of described as the head coach of the offense, right? Head coach offense. That he was running that side of the ball. So we'll see to what extent that was true. And you figure it's probably going to be a similar setup with Mike Vrabel. It's if he's going to try to be the CEO sort of head coach, which it seems like is what the Crafts want, that it is going to be Josh McDaniels' offense. Now I'm sure Vrabel will have input, and where I'm most interested on that is in personnel, where it sounds like Mike Vrabel has the final say. But we will find out just how autonomous Josh McDaniels can be. You mentioned not having Tom Brady as the quarterback, and I talked about that too. One thing I think Josh McDaniels, we haven't seen him do it a lot, but when he's done it well. He generally does a very good job of tailoring the offense to the personnel, specifically the quarterback that he has. There's some exceptions, but you look at what he ran with Cam Newton in 2020, which I know people will throw the numbers in my face about how bad they were statistically that season, and they were bad statistically. Damiere Byrd was their number one wide receiver. Ryan Izzo was their number one tight end. And look, Cam was great to cover. I think he handled that year as well as he possibly could. It was a tough year for a lot of reasons, but he was done. There was nothing left in the tank at that point.
Yeah.
And he got here he was signed July 8th in the COVID year. So really no time to get prepared either.
He kind of fell off after he got COVID.
So,
and Edelman got hurt for the season, right after that.
Right. So it didn't look good. The statistics don't look good. The box scores don't look good. When you look at the stuff McDaniels tried to implement, given the personnel he had, there are some fun, creative wrinkles in there that we could maybe see back when you talk about the quarterback run game with Drake May, or even maybe Joe Milton getting a goal line full house package, things like that. You look at what he did for Mac Jones in 2021. You could say he almost tailored the offense to Mac Jones to a fault. He gets this screen merchant label, a lot of it because of the number of screens they were throwing in 2021. I think people over-remember that number a little bit, but they did throw a lot of screens. But then you look at what happened the next year when they had Mac Jones trying to throw the ball down the field more, and maybe there's a reason he was calling all those screens.
Throw more screens.
Right. So for all the talk about McDaniels' offense is too complicated and it's not a fit for Drake May and this and that, I think maybe the best thing about Josh McDaniels is a hire here, other than the fact that he has experience. He's been an offense coordinator who's called plays before. When we talk about what is Josh McDaniels' offense, what's in his bag, it's all there. Yeah. You can go find examples. You might not find it all in one season, and it's all going to be to varying degrees, but you pick out pretty much any offensive concept, and he's installed it. Yeah. And the one weakness is he's not very good with scheme touch guys. Jonnu Smith, case in point. But outside of that, you want something installed. He has experience installing it. It's more about, okay, what direction is he going to go with it than he can or can't do this.
Yeah.
And when you have a guy like Drake May, and really what should be significant changeover on the offensive roster over the next 2 to 3 years. It's not going to all happen this year, but over the next 2 to 3 years.
It'll take time.
He does. It is kind of a blank canvas. So you can go, Josh McDaniels gives you the flexibility to go in multiple directions. So I like that. That's not to say it's all perfect, right? His play sequencing does get a little grating at times, and you put up with that. And I mentioned the scheme touch thing. He's not great with those sorts of players. So those are maybe some guys. Not that those guys are super common or the Patriots really have any of them right now. Jaheim Bell's probably the one, and if it doesn't work out with Jaheim Bell, it's a 7th-round pick. You're not losing sleep over that.
Yeah.
Other than that, they're in a pretty good shape there. So I like the McDaniels hire because it gives them flexibility. And I think flexibility at this point where they are is a good thing because they're going to need to do a lot. And if you don't need to go in a certain order and you can kind of pick and choose here and there, it's going to allow you to build this thing up quicker.
And in his defense, I've been up and down on McDaniels and what he's had around him, what he didn't, what's successful when he wasn't. I will say this, people say as a head coach, his offense didn't look good without Tom Brady. It's true. But the quarterback drop off, it's like he went from Tom Brady to Kyle Orton in Denver, Kyle Orton and Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
Then, he gets to Vegas and he's got Jimmy Garoppolo with one arm. Then he's got Hoyer. It's not like he left and went and had an all-pro quarterback and then it failed with that quarterback. He really hasn't had. Drake May is the best quarterback he's coached since Tom Brady. I mean, talented-wise, he has the biggest potential of all those guys that that he had to deal with. So I will give him that. He's better than what Cam Newton was at that point in his career. Kyle Orton, like I said, and Garoppolo when he was banged up a lot in Vegas. Hoyer, he's got a decent quarterback now. And I know for him, it's like, man, I finally get, I know the whole thing about not having Tom Brady's there, but I finally have something I can work with a quarterback that has, multiple skills, talents, arm talent, size. He's got all the things that those other guys I had in the past didn't. So not like we want him to turn him into Tom Brady, but can he make this kid a Pro Bowl level quarterback, one that can compete for the division? I think he potentially can. And I think he can improve the talent that they have on offense in ways that they can get the football. I think Pop Douglas is going to really have a fun time with the Josh McDaniels offense. We've seen guys in that position light it up before. You mentioned Jaheim Bell. I think he can use him. He'll be more innovative with a guy with a tight end, guy like that. So I think we're going to see more things from him than we've seen in the past. And I think he's got a better quarterback than he's had since he was a head coach, and without Tom Brady. I think Drake May is easily better than the guys he's had the last few years.
So, first off, you mentioned not turning him into Tom Brady. I think that's a big point. I don't want him to try to turn him into Tom Brady in the sense that, the Tom Brady offense is too complex, blah, blah. That offense was complex because they spent almost 20 years together. 29 consecutive years together building that thing up. I don't want them to drop Drake May into the 2018 Patriots offense.
Build up the Drake May offense.
Probably go poorly, right. I want him to turn Drake May into Drake May. I want him to develop Drake May, and I think he can do that. It's an interesting point, though. I hadn't considered this. When you look at the quarterbacks Josh McDaniels has had outside of Tom Brady, let's see, because I just pulled it up while you were talking. Let's play a game here and see if Drake May really is the second best. So we go back to the 2019 Broncos. Kyle Orton, good poll, started 15 games. Chris Sims started 1. I'm taking Drake May over both of those guys. 2010, and he got let go partway through that season, if I remember correctly. He did. But so I don't know the breakdown here, but I'll just tell you for the season, Kyle Orton started 13 games. Tim Tebow started 3. So I'll take Drake May over both of those guys as well.
I think those were Tim Tebow's best games of his career, too.
They were.
I'm not mistaken.
The one team you missed, it's not going to hurt your argument too much. Remember, he was the offense coordinator for the Rams for a year.
Yeah,
remember they kept signing all those players from the 2011 Rams?
Brandon Lloyd, I think he was a part of that.
Yeah, a tremendously underrated player, by the way. Not just Patriots, NFL's all.
I think he's, in my lifetime, he's one of the best hands I think of any wide receiver ever.
Hands and body control. You watch Brandon Lloyd near the sideline, like the toe tap, unbelievable. Underrated player. Just want to point that out. Yeah.
With that point of Brandon Lloyd, was he a free agent when he came?
I think so.
But to that point there, he wanted to come in with Josh. I know Tom Brady was here, but he came with Josh McDaniels. Kind of like, I know I can get my numbers. I love the offense he runs.
Yeah.
Could Josh McDaniels play a role in that in the offseason with free agency? I just wanted to throw that out there.
Maybe. Anyway, I don't know who from the Raiders is
no, not from the Raiders. I'm just around the league.
I think we'll get to that in a little bit. I want to make that point, but good call. He was a free agent. But he didn't bring any of the quarterbacks with him that he had on the 2011 Rams. He had second-year Sam Bradford started 10 games. A.J. Feely started 3, and Kellen Clemens started 3. I'll take Drake May over all those guys.
Yep.
And then you go to the Raiders, and again, I forget exactly what week he got fired in 23, but I'll tell you in 22, he had Derek Carr for 15 games. Actually, didn't play terribly. He wasn't great, but he didn't play terribly. McDaniels clearly didn't like him, but he was okay. And then Jarrett Stidham started 2 games that year. And then the next year, it was Aiden O'Connell, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Brian Hoyer.
Yeah. How do you win with that?
I will take Drake May over all those guys.
Yeah.
You could say second year Sam Bradford. I think he had a decent rookie year, if I remember correctly, and you hope it doesn't go in that direction. But I think Drake May, even though Sam Bradford was a first overall pick relative to the time, Sam Bradford, did not have a great rookie year. He won rookie of the year. He won rookie of the year with these numbers. I'm just looking at the numbers. I don't really remember. Threw 18 touchdowns, 15 picks. It's a long time ago.
Won rookie of the year?
It was 15 years ago. The game has changed tremendously. So got to get those turnovers down. He had to do that with Bradford. He's going to have to do it with Drake May. But a lot at Josh McDaniels' disposal. He was only one of the coordinators hired, though. On defense, the Patriots bringing in Terrell Williams, which the more I learn about Terrell Williams, the more I like. Let's talk about him next here. Plus your calls. You want to weigh in on the Patriots coaching staff or anything else about the team right now. 617-779-0985 as we get rolling on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
Sunday Kickoff is on.
do what's best for the player. A big reason for coming here was Mike Vrabel, just believing in him and who he is. I know what he is as a coach. I know who he is as a family man, so that's important to me. So just having a chance to get back with Mike was a big, big draw for me. The basic philosophies will be being physical, playing hard, and doing whatever it takes to win. Being successful is important, but some places are more committed, and I believe that the New England Patriots are committed to being a great organization.
Defensive coordinator Terrell Williams, if you haven't seen it, the Patriots put out these, like they did last year, just little videos, team, I guess interviews, whatever you want to call it, interviews with the team media for each of the coordinators, and that was the introduction to Terrell Williams. It's Sports Up Sunday Kickoff, by the way. Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle. We got Kyle Fabrizio and George Sepulveda behind the glass today. You want to join us? 617-779-0985. I'm really interested in this Terrell Williams signing, Cerrone, and there's a couple reasons why I like it. For one, and I don't mean this to diminish Terrell Williams, just looking at the setup. This is a guy that spent a lot of time with Mike Vrabel. He worked with Mike Vrabel his entire tenure in Tennessee. He was the defensive line coach all 6 years and was even given the assistant head coach title Vrabel's last year in 2023. This is going to be Mike Vrabel's defense. Terrell Williams is the defensive coordinator, but this tells me that, a guy Vrabel's experienced with, it's going to run the way Vrabel wants it to run, which I think Mike Vrabel's a good defensive coach. We'll see who calls it. We'll see who actually calls the plays, but this tells me Mike Vrabel's going to be hands-on on the defensive side of the ball, which is good. The other thing, I really like this about Terrell Williams because they need this badly. He is a proven player developer. You look at where he's been with the Raiders, with the Dolphins, with the Titans, with the Lions last year as a defensive line coach and all those stops. All of those teams have had good defensive linemen. In a lot of those teams, he was a part of the reason that those linemen, you look at the development he did with a guy like Jeffrey Simmons in Tennessee. You look at what he got out of that Detroit line that last year, this season, whatever you want to call it, 2024.
With everybody hurt.
With all those injuries, right. This is a Patriots team that, how many times have I said it's their own, needs a revamped defensive front. And they're probably going to be drafting a defensive lineman or a pass rusher, outside linebacker high, whether it's Abdul Carter, whether it's Mason Graham, maybe it's in the second round, a guy like Deion Walker, who we'll get to a little later in this show, or just continuing the development of Christian Barmore and Keon White. Terrell Williams seems like the ideal kind of guy to do that because he has a proven track record of developing players, and players seem to like him. You've seen a lot of guys take to Twitter and talk about it, which maybe goes to your point you were talking about in the last segment with Josh McDaniels of these coordinators being recruiters. But I really like this hire. I think Terrell Williams is exactly what they needed. I know some people, after the way it went with DeMarcus Covington last year, look at it and say, another defensive line coach who's never been a coordinator, who's never called plays. I understand that. I would feel a lot differently about it if they had a first-time head coach. Right? Sure. If it was a first-time head coach, first-time defensive play call, I'm like, all right, well, now you're back where you were last year. But how many times did we say when the defense wasn't going well last year, Cerrone, well, Gerard Mayo's got to step in and do something. He was the defensive coordinator, the co-defensive coordinator the year before. He never did. I have no doubt that if it doesn't work with Williams, Mike Vrabel's going to step in and take the reins. So in that sense, you get a guy you can develop into that role, and I think developing coaches is very important because you're going to get more coaches to come here. And on top of that, it's just, it's good practice to have. You want to be ready. So, he's a little older. He's not exactly this young guy you're grooming for a couple decades. He's 50 years old.
That's what I like.
But that's the other. He's a little older. He'll command the room a little better. But I think for the setup they have, a guy that has experience with Vrabel, a guy that's a proven player developer, those were two really important traits for me in this role, and I think they nailed both of them.
Yeah, and I think having a guy who's been around for so long, who's been coaching for a long time, not just on the NFL level, but who he's seen it all.
Yeah.
He can tell guys, hey, this is what he's going to do. Those nuances of the game that we talk about with Belichick and these older guys, Pete Carroll over in Vegas now, these older guys have seen everything. they're going to know tendencies. They're going to know habits. They're going to be able to point things out that the younger coaches won't see. Covington's going to call his defense. This is what I expect. This is what I think is going to happen. These older guys, a lot of them, this is what I know what's going to happen. And having guys like that around, just having more veteran guys in that locker room that can pull a Keon White to the side, that can pull some of these guys to the side and say, no, if you do this, this, and this, and just listen to me, you're going to be an all-pro player in this league. At the very least, you're going to make a play in this game, and that's all you want. You need somebody. We've referenced that Jacksonville game so many times where that defensive line got destroyed, who's going to say, no, this is the adjustment we're going to make, and it's going to take this part of what they're doing away. And you need more veteran guys around. And I think having an older guy in the locker room, as opposed to last year, it wasn't just the age of the coaching staff. It was the age of their resume. I guess that makes sense. This is a guy who's been coaching for a long time and has seen a lot of football. And I think he's going to have a mature presence in the locker room, on the sidelines. Guys are going to be listening to him. Guys are going to be around him, picking his brain. And I think that's exactly what a young team like the Patriots needs. And if I'm Keon White or Barmore, I'm rubbing my hands together like, okay, I got somebody. I can't wait for him to teach me all these little things and make me a better football player and use me the way I want to be used. We kind of understand that might have been a thing with Keon White. I felt out of position, and when I get used right, something's got to change. Well, maybe this is the change he was talking about, and we'll see, who they bring in, like you said, as free agents or in the draft. If he brings in his piece and says, okay, I'm going to throw this guy with Keon White on the opposite side, you might have a defensive line that goes from being one of the worst to one of the best real quickly.
Just to give you the resume real quick so people understand the experience we're talking about. So he interned on NFL coaching staffs in the late 90s while he was working at the college level. He started his first coaching job as a defensive line coach at Fort Scott in 1998, made the jump after a couple more FCS stops to the FBS level. Akron, 2004. He was there for a couple years. He was at Purdue for a couple years. He was at Texas A&M for a couple years. And I thought this was interesting, Cerrone. Mike Reese in his notes this morning is talking about Williams' resume and mentions his time at the FBS level at Texas A&M, and where he said, quote, where Williams was lauded for his recruiting, among other things. So there you go. That's to your point. He was only recruiting through 2011. That's when he made the jump to the NFL. He's with the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Titans, and then the Lions last year, where in addition to being the defensive line coach, he's the run game coordinator. So this is a guy, like you said, he has absolutely seen a ton of football. Mm-hmm. A ton of football.
On every level.
And it's going to come in handy. It's going to help this team out. It's the same with McDaniels, too. So now it just becomes about filling out the positional coaches, the big ones we're still waiting for. So they've made a couple hires. Ashton Grant's going to be their quarterback's coach. They brought him over from Cleveland. That's a younger, less experienced guy. They also brought in Ryan Larkin, who was a quarterback's assistant in Ohio State. So they're surrounding McDaniels with more of those young, up-and-coming tight pants guys. We're still waiting on wide receivers coach. That's going to be a big one. We're still waiting on offensive line coach. That's going to be a big one. And then on defense, I think it's more about waiting to see who comes back. And the big question is obviously Mike Pellegrino, the cornerbacks coach. He's been a very good coach here for a long time in New England. The cornerback position has obviously always performed at a high level as long as he's been here. Now, maybe Terrell Williams, Mike Vrabel want their own staff. It's going to be tough to get more out of your cornerbacks coach than Mike Pellegrino. So unless he has coordinator opportunity elsewhere, and I would even consider to keep him, making him like a pass game coordinator or something like that. That's the big one for me on the defensive side of the ball is Pellegrino staying either as cornerbacks coach or in some other sort of role.
Yeah. I mean, and the other one for me, I'm not sure, have they filled the linebacker coaches positions? No.
So there's a couple names that are rumored to be hired that might be linebackers coaches, but we don't know if they're confirmed to be hires or what positions they're coaching. But that's another interesting one, right? Does Dante Hightower come back? He never overlapped with Vrabel as a player. Mm-hmm. Now, he is a Tennessee guy. He went to college at Alabama, but he's from Tennessee. Mm-hmm. He almost signed with the Titans at one point in free agency. I don't remember when that was.
Okay.
But I remember him taking a visit there or something. It might have been before Vrabel was there. But people talking about it's a chance to go back home and all that. So it'll be interesting to see if they bring him back, because the defense coaching staff last year was not great. Linebacker was decimated by injuries. He was a first-year head coach. He'd be a good guy to learn and develop under Vrabel. I wouldn't hate seeing him back in that role. Maybe there's another, more veteran linebackers coach with him. You had two kind of younger guys last year with Drew Wilkins, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with him.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that whole front seven of the Patriots defense last year, the injuries and other things around them, but I think they need the biggest jump. I wouldn't touch anything with the secondary coaches, with your cornerbacks coach, excuse me. And like you said, the front seven, I think, needed the most help. And I think they're taking a step in the right direction. I think now it's just filling it with talent. I think that's the key. The whole next step of this whole thing is now, okay, who are you bringing in? How are you going to attack this draft, and how are you going to attack free agency? So I think that's going to be the biggest thing for this team to turn them around is what they do when it comes to this talent.
617-779-0985. You want to join us? I want to get to the coaching staff hires as they relate to the players. So we'll have a little fun with that next here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff coming up on the Sports Hub.
you. But at the end of the day, players win games. Players win games, and this is where now that they're starting to fill out the coaching staff, I think it's time to bring it back to the players. And I wrote something on 98.5 this week, mainly focusing on the offensive side of the ball, but we can do defense as well, about which players are maybe helped the most by what this new coaching staff brings, and what players maybe, I don't want to say are hurt, but it becomes a little bit tougher to maybe carve out a role or have success here with this current coaching staff. So I'll give you a couple from me, Cerrone, and then if you have any you want to add, and we'll start on the offense side of the ball. Guys, I think that these hires help. Ramondre Stevenson, help. I think it's going to be beneficial for him. He had a career year with Josh McDaniels in 2021. And when you look at Stevenson's issues the last few years, they've really been late in the season because the Patriots have been running him into the ground. And I would think with McDaniels coming back, one thing we can expect from the offense is we go back to that early down back, passing down back dynamic.
Yep.
And it's not just going to be guys rotating drives. And Stevenson's going to get to go back to being a downhill bowling ball runner. It's not a bad pass catcher, but that you're just going to take that off his plate, which he doesn't do as well. That'll probably be Antonio Gibson. Maybe they go out, they try to find a guy in the draft. I think if he can keep the fumbling under control, it'll help him. Another guy I think it helps. Kendrick Bourne had another guy that had a great year. He was on 1,000-yard pace until he got COVID in December in 2021 with Josh McDaniels. That was with Mac Jones at quarterback. Now, that was 3 years and an ACL tear ago, so we'll see. But he's a receiver, I think, that gets McDaniels' offense. And then one more I'll give you is City So. And I know that's kind of a minor one in the weeds, but they've been trying to find these athletic zone run guards for the last couple years. And that's not going to be the case with McDaniels, I don't think. They're going to go back to running more gap and power. So they're going to want those big people movers. City So is that guy. He profiles more as that kind of guard, which, to flip it on the other side, guys that this doesn't help, top of the list, Cole Strange. Cole Strange is not a Josh McDaniels guard. Maybe he can still make it at center, but at this point, it's going to have to probably be at center for him. I wonder about him as a guard in this offense, and the other guys I had that this doesn't help are the rookie receivers. For Jalen Polk, he kind of projects as a big slot, and in theory, he is a good fit. Based on the guy we thought he was this time last year, he's a good fit for Josh McDaniels' offense because we thought, all right, big guy, physical, can catch the ball through contact, reliable. He was getting those comps to Jacoby Myers. Obviously, he didn't live up to that. So now the question becomes, as Josh McDaniels looks at the film, finding that slot receiver is going to be tremendously important. I think Pop Douglas is a good player. He doesn't look like the kind of guy that can handle the volume that comes from that position. I think he's more of a Danny Amendola than a Julian Edelman if we're going to comp him to players in McDaniels' system. So they got to find that slot guy. Is McDaniels going to put on the film from last year, see what Jalen Polk did, and say, yep, that's the guy I'm going to throw the ball to 120 times this season? Or is he going to look at it and say, this guy's not going to cut it, we got to go elsewhere? So Polk maybe comes in as a backup. And then with Javon Baker, the coaching staff last year talked about he was having trouble kind of picking up the offense. I think it's been a little overblown how complex Josh McDaniels' offense is, but it is going to be more complex than last year. So if Baker struggled with that offense, what does that mean for him this year? He could be it could be tough for him. So I know I just threw a bunch of names at you. I don't know if you have any thoughts, but those are my kind of ups and downs for the McDaniels offense for the players currently on the roster.
I mentioned earlier to see something out of Pop Douglas. Yeah. And not so much just being a slot guy or whatever, but the thing you mentioned earlier about, passing out of the back to passing the backs and things like that. I could just see him using Pop Douglas all over the place.
I could see it too. It's a good point.
Pop Douglas out of the backfield, in the screen game, using him, sending him in motion a lot, putting him all over the place to almost like, I know he's not a running back, but almost similar to what you saw at a lot of James White, where he's just everywhere and you can't figure it out. That year in 21, I think Brandon Bolden had like 600, 700 yards that year of total offense because he was just everywhere. I know these guys are more running backs. You can put him in the running game, and Pop's not big enough for that. He'll get destroyed over time. but I think you can see him being moved all over the place and being used a lot. Like I said, almost like the Marcus Jones situation where he's coming out of the backfield, swing pass game, whatever. Just using him as a threat to where defenses have to follow him all over the place. The other areas I could see is them getting a younger tight end. I know, not saying I can see it with the guys they have now, but younger, more mobile tight ends. Maybe Jaheim Bell's that guy. Maybe they use him in different ways, put him all over the place, line him up as a fullback from time to time, and the next thing you know, he's in the pass game. I could just see more, how can I say it, more surprises from the offense, not so predictable. I think that's what you're going to get out of Josh McDaniels. And the other one for me, you mentioned Polk. Yeah, I think Polk can be used the same way. And the first player I thought of, I know he doesn't have the size or whatever, but you go back a few years when Brandon LaFell came in and he wasn't the number one option. You know, it's, I would say similar style to Chris Hogan or whatever, but he was just, maybe that could be Keyshawn Boutte, but I mean, I think that's more Keyshawn Boutte's for that role. I think could fit that. Now that I think about it, it's more Brandon LaFell. For the LaFell role Hogan. You're talking about, I would Keyshawn Boutte. That's actually not a bad. Not a bad comp. I'd go there more. But yeah, I don't think this is like, and I should mention too, because I was reading off what I wrote again. You can check it out on 985sportshub.com. I'm sure some people are probably screaming, what about Drake May? This whole thing's supposed to help Drake May. The whole premise of the thing I wrote was like, besides Drake May. Besides Drake, we know this, right. The obvious. So let me who's he throwing to? Let me make sure I put that qualifier in there. But you know, I could see this being a good thing for Keyshawn Boutte. To me, it's more about, when you look at the offseason and the guys they're adding, we kind of project that they're going to add a wide receiver, maybe an wide receiver. Push somebody out. Right. We talk about guys like T. Higgins and A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf, and we'll get to the latest DK Metcalf stuff. But that, you know, I don't think McDaniels' offense is a bad fit for Boutte. I just wonder if they're going to upgrade that position over him. But as a Brandon LaFell type, as maybe that second X, I think he'll be here because I think he's a good depth wide receiver. Like if he's your fourth guy, that's probably about right. Yeah. I think it'll help him as well. On the defensive side of the ball, so I didn't write this one, but you know, just thinking about it, I think that the big winners, and we sort of talked about this in the last segment, are those defensive linemen. And you listen to Terrell Williams talk about, you know, what he wants, and some guys that played for him talk about what he preaches, what he coaches. The big problem with Christian Barmore and Keon White the last few years has been they're maybe not playing as aggressively as they want to play because of the constraints of the defense. I think Terrell Williams and Mike Vrabel are going to tell those guys, pin your ears back and go. Get after it. Don't worry about what's behind you. Right. I think those guys are really going to be helped out. If I look at players that now maybe it's a little more of an uphill battle for them, to me it's some of those bigger, more traditional Patriots linebackers, a guy like Jelani Tavai for one, right? Where, you know, if you're going to have those guys, those defensive linemen playing more aggressively, you need defensive linemen, you need linebackers that can cover more ground. So a guy like Jelani Tavai, a guy like Sione Taki, you know, Bentley, I think we'll see where he is after the injury. He's been more mobile the last few years. They still need that third down, athletic, east-west linebacker to play alongside him, somebody to replace and improve on Mack Wilson. But, you know, I think a guy like Jelani Tavai, probably not as good of a fit if they're going to run the defense that it sounds like they're going to run. Do you think, you know, well, first of all, I think I completely agree with you with them. I think they need to get far more athletic in their front seven. I think they need Keon White shouldn't be the only physical specimen they have. I think they need multiple guys. If you look at the last four teams that are left, they just get after the ball. But do you see them being an aggressive defense next year? Like just coming after teams, all kinds of unique blitzes. And do you see them being aggressive or a team that's very conservative on the defensive side?
Yeah, I do. I don't even know how much. Like, I think they're going to want to do a better job getting pressure with Ford. They will blitz. They will get after the quarterback. But I think, and it should be, part of their you know, core belief should be, we're going to do a better job getting pressure without blitzing. I go back to, you know, what's kind of become the hallmark play, for better or worse, of the 2024 Patriots defense, which is the second down, zero blitz against the Rams, the long Cooper Kupp touchdown. And as much as people want to complain about that call, and I think we talked about it the next week, Cerrone, I know I talked about it on other shows,
They couldn't get to him.
Right. The call itself, whatever. If you're sending 7 and you still don't get pressure, you have bigger issues than the call.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, they're going to blitz. This isn't going to be a passive defense. But when you talk about being aggressive, I think for them, it's not going to be. It has to start with the front guys being more aggressive and being able to generate pressure on their own without help coming from behind. So that's where it starts. And Aiden Hutchinson, I don't remember the exact quote, but he said something along the lines this week of that's essentially Terrell Williams' philosophy. And I think that here it is. So he was talking about Williams from a couple weeks ago. Hutchinson said, everything we do, we just pull the trigger. He really focuses on getting off the ball, striking blocks, and the rest will take care of itself. And then this is from Mike Reese this morning. He talked to a former coach who was the Titans radio analyst, Dave McGinnis, who obviously covered Terrell Williams. He preaches a very, very violent game. So that's where I think the aggressiveness needs to start is Keon White, Christian Barmore. If they draft an Abdul Carter, if they draft a Mason Graham, Deion Walker, Jack Sawyer, somebody up front, it's those guys getting the pressure without the blitz. And then you strategically mix the blitz in behind that. But if you can't get pressure with those front 4, it doesn't really matter what you do because even when you blitz, like if those guys aren't a threat, it becomes that much easier to pick it up. So when we talk about them being more aggressive, that to me is where it has to start. I want to get to some other coaching news around the league. I want to get to the DK Metcalf stuff as well. We'll obviously do the around the league, just 2 games this week, but we'll do our game picks at 9 o'clock. You want to join us, 617-779-0985 as we keep it moving here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
Stay tuned for more Sunday Kickoff on the Sports Hub.
Raiders, and this is a wild one. Sources tell me and colleague Tom Pelissero that the Raiders have now agreed to terms with their new head coach, and it's Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, the new head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. The deal is now expected to be finalized. He has been no doubt a target for some time, but the Super Bowl winning head coach, formerly of the Seattle Seahawks, was out this year, and despite being 73 years old, 74 years old by kickoff, has wanted to be back in, and now he is officially in. No one is better at fixing a culture than Pete Carroll, including for the Las Vegas Raiders and new general manager John Spytek. They know they have issues in the building that need to be fixed, issues on the roster that need to be fixed. They need a quarterback. No one is better at fixing it and setting it up than Pete Carroll. Might it be short term? It's possible. But whatever it is, Pete Carroll is the now answer for the Las Vegas Raiders. They're new.
You think that was awkward at all?
Mad energy in there, though.
we had a couple interesting coaching hires as the head coaching jobs continue to fill out. They're not all done yet. We got a few this week. Pete Carroll to Vegas after Ben Johnson ends up going to Chicago. So you have a team that is entering a rebuild, a team that's going to need a quarterback. Pete Carroll's not here for a rebuild. He's 73 years old.
Yeah.
He's here to win now. I've seen some people say Russ is maybe going to go reunite with him in Vegas, or like what is the Raiders' plan? I don't understand what their plan is for this. Unless they're going to, they're going to go hard after Russ, Sam Darnold, something like that, but they need more than just a quarterback. I really don't get this hire, but it doesn't help the Patriots because I think they're less likely to trade up from 6 now for a quarterback.
Well, I was thinking the opposite. I was thinking that they will trade up now to get a quarterback. And the reason I was thinking this is what we've all seen before Dion went to Colorado when he was at Jackson State and all that stuff. Shedeur Sanders, all his offseason stuff, he would always do it with Tom Brady. And they kind of developed a friendship chemistry there with them. And he kind of trained him a few off seasons with him. And you hear all the conversations about, we don't know how true it is or how serious they're going to do it, but Dion and them kind of not deciding where I'm not letting him go to a bad situation with bad coaching and all this other stuff and try and help him through this process of where he should go, shouldn't go. And as soon as they hired Pete Carroll, I said, they're doing this because they want Sanders. And I think it makes Shedeur Prime happy that he's with a veteran head coach, the Tom Brady connection, and it's a team that needs a quarterback. And I think they will move up now to get that young quarterback. And I think they wanted a veteran guy, not just to coach the team, but somebody who's attractive to a Prime, a Deion Sanders, or some of these other guys who say, you know what, that's a good situation for my son to be in. He has a little power, has some juice. That's a good spot, good landing spot for my son. And, just kind of thinking ahead. Maybe they didn't think that much into it, but that's the first thing I thought of with Pete Carroll was, they're doing this because they're going to go after Sanders now. And it's a good place to land with that coach and with Tom Brady being there and with their needs at quarterback. So I can see Vegas moving up and taking them. Look, and Pete Carroll's a good coach. He's only had 2 or 3 losing seasons since he left New England, since before he got to New England. He didn't have a losing season here. So that's not a bad resume. Super Bowl, national championships. He's a good coach, but he's not there for a long time.
They might have to move up. They might have to move up ahead of 4 though. Shedeur Sanders at the Shrine Bowl this week and apparently getting a ton of attention, especially from the Giants. So that's you got to
move.
Right, you got to hope if from Patriots standpoint that Pete Carroll also likes Cam Ward, and Cam Ward's also there. Couple other interesting hires. Brian Schottenheimer, the offensive coordinator, is now the head coach of the Cowboys, which tells me, among all else, nobody wanted that job, which is crazy when you think about the Dallas Cowboys. Nobody wanted to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. This was a team where, the defense was bad, but offense was a problem too. And they essentially promoted their offensive coordinator to head coach. This tells me all that smoke about Bill Belichick not having his contract signed and all of that, come on. If he actually could have jumped from UNC or wanted to jump from UNC, well, let's be honest, Brian Schottenheimer would not be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
No, not over Bill Belichick. Not even close. And I think a lot of people are kind of running away the whole, not Johnson, Jerry Jones. People don't want to work. It's not that they don't want to be the Cowboys head coach. or not have Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and Parsons. They don't want to deal with Jerry Jones. I mean, it's unfortunate. It stinks for them because I think the Cowboys being good is good for the league. But I think Belichick or somebody, even Pete Carroll, being in Dallas, I think is very intriguing. But the move they made, it's like, yeah, I mean, you might as well go on to 2026. I mean, it just doesn't move the needle for me either way with that team. But I think it's Jerry Jones, man. People are staying away from him, and he's taking a proud franchise and just throwing it right into the ground, which stinks. But he's got to figure out a way to let the coaches stay out of it and hire a GM and just be the owner. But he's not going to let it go until he's, I was about to say until he's old and gray, but we're already past that.
He's needed to figure that out for a while. A couple other hires. So Aaron Glenn to the Jets. Now, look, I don't think Aaron Glenn's a bad head coaching candidate.
No,
I don't.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to give you a brief history here of Jets head coaches. We're going to go back to Bill Parcells, defensive coach, right, in the 90s.
Yep.
Al Groh for a year, defensive coach. Bill Belichick for like 2 weeks. Not even, I think, right? Defensive coach. Herm Edwards, defensive coach. Eric Mangini, defensive coach. I'm going in order, by the way. I'm not skipping anybody. Rex Ryan, defensive coach. Todd Bowles, defensive coach. So I've now gone from 1997 to 2018. All defensive coaches. 2019, Adam Gase, offensive coach, unmitigated disaster. One of the worst head coaches in the NFL in the last 2 decades. He gets replaced by Robert Saleh, defensive coach.
Defensive coach.
And a lot of these guys were first-time head coaches, too. And now we get to Aaron Glenn, first-time defensive coach. You think the Jets have a type? Look, I like Aaron Glenn. I think in the right scenario, he could be a good coach. This is not a good situation for him.
And they don't have a quarterback.
So, offensive coordinator hire is going to be crucial, but I feel for Aaron Glenn. I don't see that one working out. I think there's some places he could have gone that it might have. New Orleans would have been interesting. But, again, like, what are the Jets doing? You're just trying the same thing over and over and over. And it hasn't worked. And then the one other one, because we're up against it here, just to get through it, Liam Cohen and that whole saga. So if you missed it, Liam Cohen interviews with the Jaguars for their head coach, and obviously the OC of the Bucs. He tells them no. And the whole thing with the Jaguars coaching search this year is basically Trent Baalke, their GM, who is not well-liked in Jacksonville and has not done a good job the last few years. The owner wouldn't fire him. The owner wouldn't get rid of him. They fired Doug Peterson. Everybody thought they're going to fire Baalke with him. They didn't. Liam Cohen told the Jaguars no. Nobody knew why. And then Liam Cohen signed, or it was reported, signed this extension with the Bucs to be their OC. Then Trent Baalke gets fired. Then all of a sudden we hear Liam Cohen didn't sign his contract. He's back talking to the Jaguars, and then he goes and takes the job. So look, a lot of people are kind of calling Liam Cohen a snake and all this. I think he handled it well. First off, it's a major promotion. He's going to make a lot more money. He's now a head coach. Most people would take that.
Yeah.
He played the Jaguar because so many of these coaches, like I talked about there in Glenn, you only get so many shots at this. You don't want to end up in a bad situation. He played the Jaguars to make it a better situation. Good for him. Now, I still don't think it's a great situation. And if I was him, I still maybe would have stayed in Tampa for a year just to wait for better opportunity. But, at the end of the day, you look at the offer you get, it's going to be hard to say no to that, especially once he got Baalke out of there.
Yeah. And look, it's good for him. Hey, I'm not coming because I don't want this guy here. Okay, we'll get rid of that guy. You coming now? Yeah, I'm in. I'm there. He's the new head coach. If it works out, if he does something with Trevor Lawrence and gets that offense going and they got some pieces, just be decent and you'll be okay. But sticking with that division real quick.
Yeah.
The shocking move to me is Bobby Slowick. That's the one that kind of came out of nowhere. And if you mentioned Aaron Glenn and needing something with the offense, why not go out there and get Bobby Slowick to be offensive coordinator?
It'd be an outstanding hire. And Slowick, it's crazy. And to be saying, be patient if you're a coach, wait for the right situation. Bobby Slowick thought he was doing that, and a year later he gets fired as a coordinator. All right, we're really up against here. 90 seconds, just the headlines, no commercials. Then we'll be back. We'll talk about these conference championships today here on the Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
From the Hotel Fairchild Studios. This is your home for every Patriots game.
Into the end zone, trying to keep the play alive. Falling down, he goes to the end zone. It's got it! Touchdown!
WBZ-FM at HD Boston. 98.5, the Sports Hub. A Beasley Media Group station. Sports Hub headlines.
It is Conference Championship Sunday in the NFL. Who is going to this year's Super Bowl? We will find out this afternoon. First up this year is the NFC Championship game, which is an NFC East matchup between the Washington Commanders and Philadelphia Eagles. And then in the AFC, it's the Chiefs and the Bills taking place in Kansas City, decide the AFC's representative. Wins for the Celtics and Bruins yesterday. The Bruins got 2 goals from Morgan Geekie and 3 points from David Pastrnak in a 3-1 win over the Colorado Avalanche. And in an NBA Finals rematch, their first meeting since the finals, the Celtics beat the Mavericks 122-107. Jason Tatum scored 24 points in that one. Derek White had 23. And a big day in college hoops yesterday. Number 1 Auburn held on to beat number 6 Tennessee 53-51. Number 7 Houston and number 12 Kansas went to 2 overtimes, where Houston won 92-86. And locally, number 19 UConn upset on the road by Xavier 76-72. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Safety Insurance, providing comprehensive coverage for your auto, home, and business. Ask your independent agent about safety. I'm Alex Barth on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update at 10 o'clock.
Some people play the game.
Jaylen Brown. Blocked by Horford.
Some talk about
Let's
it.
welcome to the Sports Hub Celtics show, by the way. Jim Murray, Chris Gasper.
The Sports Hub Celtics Show with Murray and Gasper. Saturdays at noon on the Sports Hub.
He begins the approach with a run-up and a swing right leg.
Every football game starts with a kickoff. This is Sunday Kickoff with Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle on your home for Patriots football. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Pick a target.
You pick it.
Take your pick.
Pick me. Pick me.
I did not pick. There was no pick.
Pick him up. You pick him up.
Pick.
I pick.
Pick me, pick me, pick me.
Pick the teams.
Pick one, jerk.
All right, only 2 games today, so we get to be a little more detailed here, Cerrone. We'll start in the NFC. It's the Commanders and the Eagles. This is going to be a fun game. I'm really looking forward to this one. As much of a tooth pulling as Bills Chiefs will be for Patriots fans, and a lot of fans, but especially Patriots fans. Commanders Eagles a real treat. I think we can enjoy this one. The Eagles are 6.5-point favorites at home.
Jalen Hurts is a winner. He's a winner. He wins, right?
Does he win today?
I say no, because I say no. I think the Eagles. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Jalen Hurts. Yes, Jalen Hurts. I'm thinking of Jane Daniels. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think the Eagles win this game. Man, they're just so dynamic in the trenches, man. They everywhere you need to be good to win NFL football, they're good. That's just dominate the trenches, and they do it on both sides of the ball. They're explosive in the ground game. We talked so much about Saquon Barkley's big runs last week, or the ones he's had all season. The one that got it going was Hurts, streaking up the sideline. So they just have so much talent. They got A.J. Brown over there. He's reading. He doesn't really have to be a part of the offense. But if they have to go there, they have one of the better wide receiver tandems in the league. So they're just too balanced. They're too dominant in the trenches. At home, cold conditions. I just think that they get it done. And I think Washington's going to be playing from behind and chasing this whole game to me. And that leads to more opportunities for turnovers and things like that for Washington. So I think it stops. I want to see Washington make the Super. I want to see them win it, to be honest with you. But I think the Eagles are just too much.
Look, Washington's built to play from behind. So you mentioned that they'll be chasing, and they're built to chase, which is why I think this will be such a good game. And I actually think they cover that 6.5. But at the end of the day, I think the Eagles get it done. The run game's too much. Saquon Barkley against the Commanders this year. First game, 26 carries, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. Second game, 29 yards, 29 touches, 150 yards, 2 more scores. I saw this stat this morning from Adam Schefter. I think this is career. Saquon Barkley's averaging 137.5 scrimmage yards per game against the Commanders. Only team to have more scrimmage yards against a single opponent in NFL history, including the playoffs, is Jim Brown, who did so against the Eagles. I don't know if that's this year in total,
crazy.
but either way, Saquon has, and this offensive line, have owned the Commanders this year. I think that run game is going to prove to be too much. And then in the other game, I guess we got to talk about it. Your annual root canal, the Bills and the Chiefs.
For the present, you get home field advantage.
Sure. So everybody knows how I feel about the Bills.
Yep.
Obviously, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I won't lie. I've made some good coin hedging my emotions by betting for these teams over the last few years. I have. What do I do today? I don't know. In terms of hedging my emotions, I know, like we're not supposed to want the Chiefs to win and the Brady Mahomes and all that. I get it. The Bills just frustrate me so much. I don't know what I'm going to do. Last year, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just kind of watched the game, and I was like, well, I'll let my gut tell me how I feel, and that Bills missed kick was that. I enjoyed that.
I think the Stephon Diggs drop was worse.
That was, I mean, there was, I like Diggs was like the one player I liked, but anyway, Kansas City's 2.5-point favorites at home. I think the Chiefs are probably going to win. We know how this is going to go. There's going to be a bunch of annoying penalties, and it'll look like they're down, and then they'll eke something out at the last second. I guess I'm going with the Chiefs.
You know what? I honestly think the Chiefs are going to get blown out. I
think the
do.
Chiefs are going to get blown out at home.
I think they're going to get blown out by this Bills team. They got cooked by them early this season. And I think,
but that's what happens every year. The Bills win in the regular season, the Chiefs win in the playoffs.
Yeah, but there's nothing impressive about Kansas City except for the fact that everybody. It's like there's a league-wide contract not to cover Travis Kelce on third down.
It is insane.
Weird.
It is insane.
Every week, it's like, yo, the dude, he runs like a 6'8" 40 right now. Why is he open? And it's like,
and he's right there in the middle of the field. He's just running like a quick hitch.
He just turns around, puts his hands up. It's maddening to see, but I think this time around. My thing with Buffalo is this: last year before that, they would just turnover machines. Josh Allen turn it over, taking bad sacks, bad plays, and in one season he's become like he doesn't get touched. He's only been sacked like 15 times all season. He doesn't throw interceptions. They don't fumble the football. They run the football, and they're willing to win with Josh Allen not throwing for 300 yards. And I think when you see quarterbacks make that turn, it's like, oh, I think that's what kept Marino from winning. I think that's what kept Peyton Manning from winning so long. I think that's what kept Drew Brees from winning. When these quarterbacks decide to say, you know what, I'm going to let the other guy eat. And Buffalo runs the football. They control the football. They don't turn the ball over, and they let everybody around them eat. And I think that just makes them so tough to beat and so explosive. And I think they go into Kansas City today, and they lay it on them pretty good. I think Buffalo wins this game big.
I just don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball as well as they have against that Chiefs front. That's what makes me nervous. I can't believe Mark Andrews did this to us. Let me do this to wrap it up here. I don't know if you've seen this DraftKings King of the End Zone thing. Like whoever scores the longest touchdown of the day, you get like a bonus if you bet them anytime.
Okay.
I think I'm going Matt Collins. Because you want somebody that not everybody's going to bet, right?
Yeah.
So I think the Bills are going to have their share of big plays. I just think at the end of the day, the Chiefs are going to be the one that eke this one out. So you have Eagles, Bills.
Yeah, Eagles, Bills in the Super Bowl. Yes.
I think it's going to be Eagles, Chiefs again. There's no like that would be so. I remember watching the opener this year, Cerrone, the season opener, all the way back in September, and
like Kansas City Ravens game.
Yeah, halfway into the game, texting my friend. It's like this NFL season, the vibes are wrong. There's something about this season that's not going to be good. He's like, you're just saying that because the Patriots aren't going to be good. I'm like, no. Like, there's something weird about it, and hasn't it kind of gone that way?
Yeah,
hasn't it's been like uncomfortable.
Really weird. Yeah.
Wouldn't the perfect ending to this season be like, oh, Eagles, Chiefs again? Great. So I think it's going to be Eagles, Chiefs.
Yeah, I think the Bills. I hate the Bills. I hate the fact that I wish I took a picture of this. So we go to Wegmans a lot.
Yeah.
All the Wegmans here have Bills stuff everywhere.
Oh, yeah, because it's like a that area
New York
country,
company.
yeah.
There's Bills. Yesterday they had Bills cupcakes and T-shirts at every register, and I'm like, God, I want this team to just crash and burn right now.
North Carolina.
Yeah, and all the way in North Carolina, there's Buffalo Bills cakes at the entrance of Wegmans. It's frustrating.
It's just too much.
It's way too much. But I'm like, man, I can't deny the fact that these dudes don't make mistakes. They seem to figure something out, man, and they're a good team. And I just think that they get points on every drive in this game. I honestly think they get a field goal to something every drive in this game.
I mean, look, the Chiefs are here. Patrick Mahomes, I don't mean to take anything away from him. He's obviously a tremendous player, but the Chiefs are here because of their defense. They haven't scored more than 30 points a game this season. If the Bills do that, points on every drive, they're going to win. And that would be incredibly impressive, and that would be a true statement. So we'll see. We will see. Eagles Commanders going to be fun. I'm going to have fun from 3:30 till 6:30. I will enjoy that, and then we'll see. All right, that's your picks. Let's get back to the Patriots next here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff is on the way on the Sports Hub.
for living in Massachusetts?
Look at how long it's taking you to say the word. No. No, it's not a desirable place in my opinion. I say great organization.
Well, I was born in a small town and I live in a small town. Papa died in a small town. Oh, small for me too.
Back here on Sunday Kickoff, Alex Barth and Cerrone Battle. We got Kyle Fabrizio and George Sepulveda behind the glass. That clip got a lot of play this week, or really, I think the last day or two. And I've been talking about DK Metcalf a lot, so I had a lot of people tweeting at me, so I'll respond now. Like, who is he on with again? Is that with Kay Adams? No?
I'm not sure who that was. I can't remember who it was.
I forget who he was. It was DK Metcalf on with somebody. Katie Nolan. He's on Katie Nolan, who's obviously is locally here. And one, I think he's kind of joking. You hear him be like, yeah, with how long it took you to say
it, yeah.
Right. And two, there is always Rhode Island. It's not that bad of a commute to Foxborough. It's not terrible. And three, if you think there's a chance you might be negotiating a contract with the Patriots, you're probably not going to go out there and be like, yeah, I'd love it.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't say anything.
I don't know. You tell me, Cerrone, am I being naive? Is this, as Jim Murray would say, my boyish charm, thinking that this doesn't eliminate DK Metcalf from the Patriots? Or should I'm not worried about this. It costs him a little more money to bring him in. At the end of the day, 90% of the time, if you pay the player the most money, and yes, they may need to pay him more to compensate for the taxes.
Mm-hmm.
If you offer the player the most money, you get him. That's how it works 90% of the time. Yeah. I never thought DK Metcalf would take any sort of discount to come here. Mm-hmm. But am I being naive in saying that this shouldn't rule it out?
No, I don't think this should rule anything out, because at the end of the day, it's business.
Right.
It's all about business. As far as personal, like as a place you want to live and whatever. I was like, look, the dude's I think he's from Mississippi. So, I mean, I think he would have said the same thing about moving to Tacoma, Washington, too, from Mississippi. But that being said, it's business at the end of the day. And if he wants out with an opportunity to play with a young quarterback and do all these other things, build his brand even more bigger than what it is right now. Look, I honestly believe he's in a bigger market. He'd be in a bigger market. If he wins, if he comes to the Patriots and has a successful season, I think being a star in Boston is bigger than being one in Seattle. I think that's, I jokingly said this on Twitter yesterday. It's funny when you talk about NBA, NHL, or MLB free agency, they talk about Boston, getting guys to come to Boston. When you talk about the Patriots, it's like, I don't want to move to New England. Like, it's just some place, it's some off distant world somewhere. It's like, no, it's like you're a Boston athlete. But that being said, I think the things he says about, with Massachusetts not being desirable, whatever, I can tell you there's a lot of people who feel that way about this region, who don't know, who've never been here, who've never really been. I know he's traveled, he's played there as a player, but they come in Providence, they drive to the stadium, they do their thing, and they go home. They really don't spend time in the city. Well, if you're an NBA player,
right,
or NHL or whatever, you're going downtown Boston, you're spending time in the city, you're seeing more. There's just a whole different vibe to it. If the Patriots played, on the seaport, his view of Boston would be totally different. But I think a lot of players, especially ones from the South, they don't know anything about Massachusetts. So to them, it's like Green Bay. It's North Dakota, because they don't know until they come and then they see things for themselves. So I think the key is getting guys in. We talked about some of these guys being recruiters and bringing in talent, whatever. You got to talk to other players. You got to talk to former guys who, for other sports who your agent kind of deals with, in other leagues, whatever, to kind of get a vibe of the city. But he's a guy from Mississippi. There's a lot of guys in the South that are like, nah, it's cold up there. I don't know what's there. And it's not just the Patriots. They feel that way about the Bills. They feel that way about many teams in these cold weather places. They find every reason in the world to say it's not desirable until you slide that check over with them zeros that they really like. So again, you're going to have to overpay to get some guys in like that, or make trades or whatever and pay them to keep them there. But you have to get them in the building and see what it's really about in this region, so they can get a better appreciation of it and understand how cool it is to be an athlete in Boston.
So this is where, when we talk about the offseason free agency and a lot of people talking about, the Patriots aren't going to be able to get anybody. It's not going to be easy.
No.
The location, also, the team hasn't been good. Like, the reputation is not what it was.
Yeah.
But you hear Metcalf say there at the end, what do you say? Good organization, great organization, right? So,
yeah.
For all the, nobody's going to want to play for the Patriots, whether he's joking or not, his issue is geographic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not with the team. And that's
right.
where you hope Mike Vrabel, Josh McDaniels, Terrell Williams can pitch players. We've seen the support Terrell Williams has gotten from his former players. I would say that is encouraging as a recruiter. Mike Vrabel is solid, as it sounds like, is a guy that players have liked playing for. Same thing, he will get good reviews as players talk to one another. And with McDaniels, we talked about this a little bit last week. For offensive guys, they want to know that they're going to be able to produce.
Yep.
That is what. Am I going to get my touches? Am I going to be able to put up numbers? Am I going to hit my incentives? And McDaniels has tape that he can show these guys. Be like, I'm going to put you in this role, and this is what you're going to do, and boom. And that's going to be the pitch to Metcalf. Mm-hmm. Now, that's how you get in the door. That's how you get these players to talk to you. Nobody's taking discounts to come here. They are still going to have to offer top dollar. They are going to have to be able to pay. But, I heard that clip from Metcalf last night, and I see people saying, oh, the dream is over, this and that.
No.
If you offer to make him, he's probably, you're not going to top Jefferson. But if you offer to make him the second highest paid receiver in the league,
he's coming.
Right, suddenly, suddenly being a asshole doesn't sound so bad, right? Can I say that on the air?
Hey, look,
we don't need to drop that, right?
Look, he'll be saying Massachusetts with no problem. He'll be saying it quickly. Like you said, he can live wherever he wants to live if he's the second highest paid receiver in the league, and he's playing with Drake May. His numbers are up. Right. He'll be happy with that. I mean, it's not like this dude is coming from Miami and is like, why, I don't want to leave this destination. He's in a place that is probably raining right now. It's. I know Seattle's a cool city. Washington is just as dreary as New England. And coming from the South, that ain't a desirable place either. But he's been there all this time. He's made a name for himself. And I understand he likes to market himself. You see him in a lot of commercials and stuff like that now. I think being a star player for the Patriots in the city of Boston is still a desirable thing. There's a lot of money you can make from that.
Right.
And especially if you win, if you make the playoffs as a receiver for the Patriots, he can go talk to Randy Moss and Edelman and Gronk and all these other guys. You can make a ton of money on the side being a good football player in Boston or New England, just being a good athlete in this region. And I think his agent and his people around him, like, man, if you go there and dominate, you're going to be the man. So don't worry about that. And like you said, they're going to have to pay. And I think they know that. He knows that. And anywhere outside of going to play for the Dolphins or going out to LA, anything outside of that, you're not going to the greatest locations to live life. So, I mean, look, he's going to go for the top dollar.
Let me ask you this. Me and Kyle were just talking about this off the air. The rumblings that Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll are going to reunite in Vegas. Do they call DK Metcalf and run that whole thing back? Because the NFL is completely out of new ideas. And, let's redo the Seahawks again in Vegas.
Look, I think he'd go to Las Vegas, but not because of Russell Wilson. I think he'd just go because I think it kind of matches his personality and some of the things he likes to do off the field. I think Las Vegas would be an absolute destination. Miami, a destination.
Yeah.
Playing in LA, I think would be a destination for him.
But at the end of the day, like,
money is the destination.
Right. Money is the destination. Somebody, and I'm looking at the YouTube chat, somebody mentioned get him the Duncan contract. I think because he was in Seattle, which is a big coffee city. Yeah. I think he had a deal with like Starbucks or something. Remember the decaf Metcalf?
Yeah, there you go.
So
they'll come up with something.
Figure that one out. So
money's going to talk, though.
I just think if you pay him the most money, you're going to have a shot.
Mm-hmm.
That was to me, that was not I won't play for the Patriots. That was you're going to have to convince me to play for the Patriots, and convince you do that with dollars. So whether it's Metcalf, whether it's Trey Smith, whether it's Josh Sweat, whether it's any of these free agents, the coaches, and I think they have a head coach and coordinators that are good recruiters, and that will help. That's not nothing. but they're going to have to offer top dollar to get these players. Whether or not they're willing to do it, we will see.
Because
Robert,
he'll talk a big game, and next thing you know, he's playing for the Packers, and you're like, wait, but didn't you just say? It's
right.
like, oh, you find out they made him the highest paid receiver in the league. It's that simple.
Right. Robert Kraft, was it? I think after they fired Mayo, talked about how they'd be willing to spend this offseason, or I'm kind of paraphrasing there, but he was asked about spending and gave his line of spend to the cap. They have more cap space than anybody in the league, and as plenty of people on this station will tell you, the cap can be maneuvered and all of that. Are they willing to pay these guys? Because I still think if you make Metcalf the highest paid receiver in the league, if you make Josh Sweat, he's probably not going to touch like Myles Garrett. But if you make him a top 5 paid pass rusher in the league, right, things like that,
he's coming.
Right, you're going to be able to get these guys. So, but look, free agency is only part of it. Free agency is only part of it. They have to hit in the draft as well. Big step in the pre-draft process this week. Let's get to that next here on Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff.
More Sunday Kickoff coming up on the Sports Hub.
the beginning of the pre-draft process, Cerrone, because I think it's really important to remember that we're evaluating these guys. When I say we, I mean like the teams, but also us that are following along, right? As football players. What do they do 11 on 11, pads on, full contact, full speed? They just did that for 4 months. Some of them have done it, for a few years now. Mm-hmm. That should be the basis for the evaluation of these players.
Yep.
What the Senior Bowl is about, what the Combine is about, it's a tiebreaker. Mm-hmm. You're not going to look at a guy in the Senior Bowl and be like, well, I thought he was a first-round pick. Now I think he's a fourth-round pick. Or I thought he was a fifth-round pick, but now I think he's a second-round pick. You're not moving guys really that wildly in these events outside of oddly specific examples.
Yeah.
What this is more, okay, there's 3 tackles. I kind of view them all similarly. Mm-hmm. They're all probably late first, early second-round picks. This can be like a tiebreaker. Or with guys that have more variance if there's a guy from a smaller school. Mm-hmm. Right? Like Kyle Duggar's at the Senior Bowl a couple years ago. It's a bigger week for a guy like that because with a lot of those small school guys, you have to ask the question of the level of competition.
Yeah, and the exposure. People don't really get to see them.
Right. So nobody's going to make or break their draft stock, but this is still an important week, especially because I talk about the tiebreaker and the tiering, where Maz is tears, right, of these players. They're for a couple key positions for the Patriots. There are players that definitely are going to be talked about a lot this offseason that will be on the field at Mobile. I'll start right away. Will Campbell's not there. Abdul Carter's not there. Travis Hunter, like the guys that are locked up top 10 picks, they don't do the showcase games. Mm-hmm. So we got to go to the next tier. But what a lot of Patriots fans, I think, are looking for is I see people sending me mock drafts and things like that. They want Will Carter. They want they want Abdul Carter. The reason I always do that, by the way, I say Will Carter a lot. When I was in college covering Ithaca football, we had an amazing linebacker named Will Carter. So that name's just burned into my head talking about football. They want Abdul Carter. They want Travis Hunter. They want Ted McMillan. They want maybe Mason Graham at the top. But they know that they got to check the tackle box. So it's all right. What tackle can I get with the second pick? And whether that's at 38, whether it's trading back up into the first round, which is looking more and more like it'll be the case, right? And look, I think there's a way that they can have that draft and have a good offseason. Mm-hmm. I think there's a way they can draft Carter and get the tackle second. You have to get the tackle second because they need a starting caliber left tackle, and I don't think they're getting that guy in free agency or a trade. But I think there are some guys that maybe don't have the floor that Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks do, but definitely have the ceiling to be a franchise left tackle. So 2 guys that really stand out to me in that regard are Josh Connerly from Oregon and Ariante Ursary from Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Both of those guys will be at Senior Bowl. They happen to be on the same team. They're on the American team and the national team. So, you watch the practices in this like you watch a training camp practice. You evaluate. Yeah. So we'll really get to see these guys back to back against the same competition. It's going to be very educational. Connerly, he was the top-ranked tackle in the recruiting class with Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks, 2-year starter, true junior. He's not small, but he's not, I think he's like 6'5", 310, something like that. He's average size for tackle. He's going to win more with technique and just kind of that sort of thing. There's Ariante Ursary, 6'6", 337, and he was on, I think it's Dane Brugler from The Athletic, does the freaks list every year of the guys that are just like these apex athletes, right? Physically mauling, very athletic, moves well, not as technically sound, but wins his own way. So which guy do you want? It's kind of, it might end up being a preference thing, but that's if I were to pick one thing, tell people to look at from the Senior Bowl this year, those 2 guys, who do you like? Because if you want Abdul Carter at the top, if you want Ted McMillan at the top,
these are the guys that comes next.
That's the guy you're probably going to need to trade back up into the first round. They have the ammunition to do it. Or if you're trading down and then trading back up, it becomes easier. Like those are 2 guys I'm looking at, and then we can do the same thing at the wide receiver position. Especially, I know we just talked about DK Metcalf, but really it's that slot guy, and you need a guy with a proven track record and a volume role that can handle that, and maybe they get that as a veteran. But Xavier Restrepo from Miami is a guy that's already being talked about a lot. in regards to the Patriots. He kind of fits that mold. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, both Iowa State receivers. Do you want that smaller, shifty slot guy, or do you want the power slot? They're two different types. And then a guy that's not getting nearly enough attention going into this game is a guy named Kyle Williams from Washington State, who was just an all-around threat for the Cougars last year, did a great job. Jalen Royals as well. He's kind of a slot Z sort of player. And though all those guys are kind of similar, they're middle of day two, all kind of in that mix. Williams is currently projected later, but he'll move up. I don't know why nobody's talking about him. Kind of blows my mind, but like it's a good group of restreavers to sort out as well. Either of those stand out to you? Any other players stand out to you if you look at the Senior Bowl rosters?
The Restrepo one is interesting because everybody watched Cam Ward, so you should have plenty of tape on this kid here. And he reminds me of a similar situation this time last year. I'm going to give us the credit here. We were the first two telling everybody Ladd McConkey was lighting up Senior Bowl.
He had a great Senior Bowl last year.
And we were like, yo, this dude he's something to watch. It was like, yeah, but it's like, no, he put on the show. And of course we see how that worked out over time. I want to see if Restrepo does the same thing. I want to see if he separates himself and becomes that type of receiver. And if he is, I think if you're a fan of the Josh McDaniels offense, like we talked about earlier, and those type of guys across the middle of the field, you'd be looking at him like, hey, we saw him be a volume guy with Cam Ward in the ACC. We see what kind of player he is. We see how shifty he is. What would this dude look like with Drake May paired up with him across the middle of the field, along with another shifty guy and Pop Douglas, like we said, can use him all over the place. Just having more guys that can just get separation really quickly. And I think that's a key to McDaniels' offense. Because you have McDaniels, I think you're looking at these players now at the Senior Bowl differently. Like you said, the kind of offense they run, you're going to be paying more attention to guys that get open quickly. And not so much to stretch the field, big guys. It's about the guys that are quick, get in and out of their breaks. And I think watching a guy like Restrepo is going to be key to that. And on the other end for me is I'll be watching the defensive tackles. Understand Mason Graham is the one that, everybody's talking about and how much of a disruptor he can be. I think pairing up a guy like a Mason Graham next to Barmore, I think would be huge, getting a play like that in the draft. As more so than the outside edge guys. I'm looking for more interior disruptors, so I'll be watching the defensive tackles. But I think Restrepo, to me, if I'm a McDaniels fan and Drake May fan, which most of us are, I think watching guys like him and guys that operate in the slot in and out like that are the guys you should be paying a lot of attention to.
Let's go back to I'm glad you brought up the defensive tackles, and I'm really glad you specifically referenced Mason Graham. So Mason Graham's not going to be here. He's top 5 pick, but that idea of can you get that interior disruptor with Christian Barmore, assuming he's healthy, obviously.
Yep.
One of my favorite players at the Senior Bowl, one of my favorite players in the draft, I think has a chance to be an absolute steal, and that's Deion Walker from Kentucky. Now, let me start here with Deion Walker. You see what players are listed at, right, size-wise, and you usually know it's a little bit of an exaggeration. How many guys end up being, and they already measured him in at Senior Bowl, how many guys end up being bigger than they're listed? Not many, right? Deion Walker was listed at 6'6", 330. He came in at 6'7", 353. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, so it's just, some big guy's going to stand in the middle. He rushes standing up sometimes. He'll play hand down, tackle. He'll play end. There's a couple clips of him essentially playing outside linebacker. This guy is a freak athlete.
Yeah.
He is one of the I mentioned the freaks list earlier with Ursary, right?
Yep.
He is one of the best pure athletes in this draft. And I'm going to give you the numbers again. 6'7", 353 pounds. And you know what word I keep seeing when I look up scouting reports for him on the internet? Nimble. 6'7", 353, nimble. Now,
that's a disruptor.
He was supposed to be a first-round pick this year, and he's getting a lot more attention from blockers, and there's some questions about where his motor was at times this year after Kentucky lost some games. So he's now projected to be an early day 2 pick. That's a guy you got to make sure interviews well. You don't want to bring him in and have him dog it. But if he interviews well and you can get him back in the mindset he was in 2023. Remember how into Tavondre Sweat I was last year?
Yep.
Like similar kind of player, but he's actually a better pass rusher than he is run stopper. He needs to improve against the run. He's a great pass rusher.
It's because he's leverage. He's standing straight up and he gets pushed back.
But you look at a guy that's that big, and I'm like, all right, if he can become a serviceable run player, he's already a great pass rusher. He also didn't come off the field at Kentucky. He's got tremendous durability. Like, that's the guy. I think for Mason Graham, tremendous football player. But the Patriots really have 3 blue chip players. That's it. It's Drake May, Christian Gonzalez, and Christian Barmore. Mm-hmm. You have this great asset with the 4th overall pick. I think using it on a player, you already have somebody at that position.
That's
like
true.
You got to spread the talent on the roster, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there wouldn't be value in having that guy, but
I get you,
unless if we find out Barmore can't play anymore, it becomes another conversation. But using that on a tackle, using that on a pass catcher, using that on an outside rusher, an edge rusher, and then you have a guy like Deion Walker, or I'll even give you Cameron Jackson from Florida. Sometimes you stack the players for value, right? So Mason Graham is your day one version of this penetrating, athletic, oversized defensive tackle. Deion Walker's your day 2 guy. And then Cameron Jackson, who's also going to be at the Senior Bowl, is your day 3 guy, right? I understand the value in getting that guy in. I just don't know that that's what you're using the 4th overall pick on, especially if you have an opportunity to trade down.
Where do you stand on Walter Nolan from Ole Miss?
Sorry, say that again?
Where do you stand on Nolan from Ole Miss, the D tackle?
Yeah, I think he's going to be at the Senior Bowl, so I'll learn a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if he's, just in general, not so much the Senior Bowl, but do you think he's somebody that might still be there early second round, to where they can get that D tackle a little later if they don't take that, if they don't go that route in the first round?
Maybe, yeah. Defensive tackles tend to fall. Now, he's more that pass rushing, might be a hybrid end kind of guy. So
he's not so much the
not
run
as much.
Stopper.
Because I'm looking at, if you want like that run stopping defensive tackle, there are guys in this, like the pure run stopper, right? The guy that you're just going to put in the middle and, he's going to shut things out. It's, guys like, I'm blanking on names right now, but those guys fall because they're just run stoppers. That's what they are. They're not as valued.
Like specialists.
Jamari Caldwell from Oregon, Yaya Black from Iowa. You can get those guys a little bit later. If you want that pass rushing defensive tackle, you're going to have to go earlier. But again, that's where I like a guy like Walker. I'll give you one other Senior Bowl player here that I'm interested in, or one thing for Patriots fans to watch, and one player I'm interested in. We'll kind of combine these. So the Patriots have drafted a quarterback from the Senior Bowl 3 the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. The bigger quarterback story to me is Jalen Milroe, who the Patriots, I would be shocked if they drafted, but he was talked about as a potential top 10 pick, and then he had a rough end to the year. Can he kind of remind scouts why he was the guy that he was? Certainly a Pete Carroll kind of quarterback, so maybe he comes into play at 6 if the other 2 guys are off the board. Because it's relevant to the Patriots because it impacts the value of the 6th overall pick, right? So I'll be watching Jalen Milroe. But because the Patriots have the history of drafting these guys and the Elliott Wolf philosophy of you take a quarterback every year. Now, we don't know how much Elliott Wolf is going to be driving this. Mike Vrabel now has final say. Ryan Cowden's in the front office as well. But if you'll allow me to play the game here, what kind of quarterbacks did they like last year? Big, strong arm, mobile. Mm-hmm. So I'm going through the Senior Bowl quarterbacks yesterday. Right, Dylan Gabriel, he's 6 feet tall. It's not going to be him. Jalen Milroe is going to go too high. Riley Leonard doesn't have the arm. Jackson Dart, he's too small. I get to Tyler Shuck from Louisville, 7-year college player, experienced, good size, 6'4", 230. He moves well. He's not a great mover, moves well. Throws the ball hard. Doesn't really throw it far. Throws it hard. I'm like, all right, maybe Tyler Shuck's their guy. And then I found this guy, Taylor Elgersma from Lorraine. He is the second ever U Sport player. That is the Canadian NCAA. Second ever U Sport player to get invited to the Senior Bowl. 6'6", 225, and he can chuck it. He's good. I don't look. He's a UDFA.
Joe Milton.
He's a Canadian Joe Milton. That's right. I don't think he's going to get drafted. It is fascinating to kind of the story's interesting. He's just going to be a fun player to watch. He'll probably end up at UDFA. I could see him being somebody's camp arm. So that's a fun player to watch. Any other? We're just
okay. Real quick. Far as quarterbacks, we've talked about this for weeks. another quarterback popping up out of nowhere that everybody gets hot on between now and the draft that kind of just falls in the top 10 again. Do you see teams like the Jets trying to get ahead to get another to take a quarterback? Do you think there's somebody behind the Patriots besides the obvious teams that is going to get so hungry for a quarterback that they try and move up and take that Patriots position? And outside of, because I think the Jets are going to be one of them who now we're looking like, man, these guys really need a quarterback. Do you see the Jets or somebody else trying to leapfrog the Patriots to get one of these? Will a Milroe be sexy again? Or Will Howard or somebody like that? Will there be a push on quarterbacks to where there's going to have so many teams trying to leapfrog the Patriots to get one? Do you see that happening?
Yeah, so I think the Jets might. I probably wouldn't trade and help the Jets get a quarterback. I just think in division, that guy ends up being great, and you put him on your schedule twice a year. I would be hesitant to make that trade if I were the Patriots. Mm-hmm. That being said, I look at the Saints at 9 as a potential quarterback team. Maybe Dallas at 12, depending on what Schottenheimer wants to do with Dak, but I probably am not moving back that far anyway from the Patriots. Yep. If there is another team besides Vegas at 6, I think New Orleans at 9 is a team that they should be in the market. I think Carr's still under contract there, right? Or is he getting released?
I think he's under contract because he doesn't show up on any of the. He's not free agent list or anything like that.
I can't imagine they're overly confident in him. And they took Rattler last year. I think that's a team that needs a quarterback. So probably the Saints if you're going to go in that direction. But we'll see what happens. Draft process starts this week. We will obviously have a ton to recap next week on the show. With that, I would think we'll have at least almost a filled out coaching staff, if not the full coaching staff. It will be. It will not be Super Bowl week next week. We'll know who the Super Bowl is, but we won't be previewing the Super Bowl. But we'll get into some of that. I don't know how much Pro Bowl stuff we're going to do, but we'll have plenty to get to next week. So it'll be same time, 8 o'clock on Sunday. If you missed any of the show, you can find it on the Sports Hub YouTube page or Sports Hub Sunday Kickoff, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow Cerrone on Twitter @Cerrone.